A very good afternoon to all the viewers. Welcome back to another episode of BW People HR Voices. Today we have with us Ms. Kameshwari Rao, the Global Chief People Officer at Publicis Sapient. With more than 35 years of experience and as a part of the global talent leadership team, she has established Publicis Sapient as an employer of choice in India. Ms. Rao started her career in finance at the Tata Group and was entrusted with setting up an office in Bangalore in the 80s, which was a rare feat for a woman professional at the time. After taking a break, she pursued personal growth opportunities, eventually joining Publicis Sapient, where she rose from a senior associate to a global leader. Firstly, welcome, Ms. Kameshwari. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Savi. Great to be here and meet with your audience. Hi, everyone.
Same here. On the occasion of World Mental Health Day, today we're going to talk about something that is of utmost importance for organizations, which is prioritizing mental health at work and prioritizing the mental health of employees. So firstly, I want to ask you, Ms. Kameshwari, how would you define a people-centric culture? You know, when we talk about a people-centric culture, employee well-being is an important part of it. Enhancing employee experiences is also a very important part of it. So how do you think it builds on to create a people-centric culture, and eventually how does it impact the organizational productivity, the overall culture of the workplace?
Okay, so you've kind of bundled lots of questions and lots of things into one question. So let me try and sort of step back and see, how to respond. So first of all, when we think about building a culture, it's not through one particular thing, right? So, I can give you our example. So as an organization, we sort of have a history of about 30 years. From day one, I think, our founders, the way they set it up, it was about focusing on our values and keeping the people at the center of everything we do, right? So that's just, at the very beginning, what needs to be fundamental to what and how you do things. I think if you think about then, from then to today, because it's not just about having the values and that creating that culture, it's about how do you actually put your people practices in place that put the business on an equal footing with the people. Right. So the way we think about our people strategy is, we think about the individual right at the center of everything that we do. We create the right environment for the person and the right experiences. I think you referred to experiences as an important piece of that. I'll talk about the three in brief, but then I will go to the environment, which is where, your question on mental well-being comes into the picture. So when you think about the environment that you create for an individual, is how do you create it in such a way that the person brings their whole self to work? I think that's at the heart of it. So it is a combination of our values, how people behave with each other, how do you create that sense of belonging and trust and all of that? How you create that inclusion, in the how people engage with each other. And mental well-being is a big part of that. And it has become especially so, in the current context. I'll go to the experience because it sort of dovetails into the environment. When you think about experience, it's about how do you leverage data and technology to kind of give you the right insights to actually keep taking iterative shifts in the way you kind of manage your people. So, so it's a combination of the person, the environment, and the experience, like I said before, right? So kind of to go to mental health, and I think, it's taken a very, very front and center type of conversation in the recent past. It's both a lot of external factors. There's so much of information overload. There's so much of peer pressure. There's so much of, general upheaval, I guess, in the world, that it puts a lot of, it's creating a lot of stress in the minds of young people, especially. And when we say young people, it's people who probably not had the experience to be able to manage this thing, or they don't have the support system in some ways to manage this. And COVID and, working from home and, just sort of aggravated the whole thing. Even now, I know people say that we love remote work, and there is a huge element of working remotely that's very, very good. But I think, it is added, I think, to a little bit of this creating that environment because, you move from joint families to nuclear families. You move from your work, where your colleagues, you had lots of people to talk to. Now you don't have anybody. You're basically doing very one-on-one type of conversations. So all that being said, what do we do, right? We recognize this is a reality, and that's what it is. So I think there are 3 or 4 things that we do as an organization. If you think org level, it's about policy and programs, right? What are the policies we have in place, whether it's insurance, whether it's, employee counseling, what we call as EAP. and things like that, which anybody has access to and they can go to. I think the second level is at the individual level. So, hey, I have something that I want to discuss, but I don't know who to go to. I don't want to talk to my manager because, I don't want to tell them about things that are going on in my life. Because there's line is blurred between work and home. So we have something called the Mental Wellbeing Ambassador Program, where we've trained a lot of people within Sapient to actually create that, anonymous way in which they can talk to somebody and, share their, I guess, it's mostly to vent and get some perspectives. I think we have the third thing we have is a mental well-being BRG, or business resource group, where people, come together to solve similar types of problems. Hey, I'm going through this particular situation at home. How can this group help me? I have this particular issue at work. I don't know how to manage my manager. How does that? So that there's a BRG that helps with that kind of thing. So I think you have to take steps at policy program level. You have to take steps at individual level, and then you have to create the right community to manage this. So, and I will say this, it's not, here today, gone tomorrow. It is things that you have to build. So the culture gives you the base from which you then build the structures to support that particular, situation that you are in right now.
Right. Thank you
that
for
answers
sharing.
the question.
Thank you for sharing the initiatives that Publicis is doing in this space. But measuring the impact of these initiatives is also very important. So, what could be some KPIs, or let's say metrics, that you use to measure the effectiveness of these campaigns?
See, the way to measure is, I think, twofold. If you think about effort, the way we measure anything, right, is about what's the effort and what's the effectiveness. The effort is, okay, how many people are using my EAP or counseling sessions? The way the another effort metric could be like, okay, how many people actually dial in or call in to our mental well-being ambassador, because we have that on Fridays and it's there from for a good 6 hours. There are people on call all the time. How many people are actually calling in? So those are what I would call effort metrics. The way to measure the impact or the effectiveness is through, all the listening tools that we have, right? We have like several times in the year, we check in with dipstick to say, how do you feel at work? Do you feel supported? Do you have the right, are you able to talk to your manager? Do you have the right kind of support from a, policy program perspective to actually help you in whatever situation that you're in? So that we measure at least at the minimum 4 times in the year. And then we kind of look at that. So that's the effectiveness metric. So I think, if you want to introduce a new program, you want to make sure that it is effective. So that's the other one. And the lastly, I'll say is, the satisfaction scores. I guess when people leverage a particular program or a policy, what is their level of satisfaction? So we measure that too. So there are ways to measure it. Otherwise, we'll be going in one direction and we will not know whether that is being effective or not. So we are, like I said before, right? Everything is data driven. It's the way we are doing this all the time.
Right. But Ms. Rao, mental health is still a stigma in India. People are still resistant to talk about their mental health, even though you have several initiatives in place. You are doing the needful. But the employees, do you feel, are they encouraged enough to have open conversations with the management? What is the status of that? Also, how do you make sure that your awareness programs, your training programs are culturally sensitive, wherein they are taken care of the employee well-being? What are your views on this?
See, I think that is again a function of what I said first, right? Is how you create the culture. Like, if you go back, see, everything's very fundamental. That is fundamental. If you think about the culture of the organization and what are our values, one of them is engaging with openness. So it is not, again, it didn't happen yesterday. It didn't, it's not like, just happened because somebody has a well-being problem. It's a culture of 30 years that you've created where it is non-hierarchical. People can talk about anything to anyone. It's harder, I will say today, because, you're only talking to a screen most of the time. But that is just the culture we've built over time. It's where you have created the environment where people say, okay, it's perfectly fine. I can actually raise this issue. However, having said that, to your point about mental stigma, talking about something repetitively, I think, and putting the the avenues available for people in different ways. See, everyone doesn't follow one mode, right? You can do a training, you can get them to listen to something, that's one mode. But having these small group conversations, having large group conversations, I think we have a mental or actually well-being week next week. So many things are planned, right from physical, mental, spiritual, financial, like everything, all this adds. It is not human mind is very complex. We don't know what causes what. So creating the avenues, I think, is the role that we play. Creating the environment, again, is the role that we play. And then we let the system prevail, I guess. We let people leverage the system, whatever works for them. Because like I said, our calling system is anonymous. So if you don't want to say anything, then, they can not say. They don't have to reveal their name. They don't have to know who they are talking to. They don't have to tell who they are talking, who is talking. So it ranges, the whole range is available. And I think that's important. Yeah.
I think especially in a remote work arrangement where there's a distributed workforce, it becomes even more difficult to start this conversation. But how do you think collaborations can help in this situation? The collaborations between local NGOs who support mental health and professionals such as psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors. What is their role in enhancing these experiences for employees? What are your views on this?
My experience has been that, when we have something called EAP, or employee assistance programs, that is a formal way in which psychologists, psychiatrists, whoever's are the right people, are on the other side of that, either the call or the meeting or any of that, right? So that is a whole organization that takes care of this. And I think that has played a role. Again, it is not now, we have this for 20 years. So it's not a new thing, so we are normalizing that we have an EAP and a counseling possibility. So that is a role that they can play. I think they play a very important role because they are professional counselors, right? They've all been trained in this thing. So I think that is really important. I think taking away the stigma is about communication, is about how we talk about it. Is about saying that, hey, we know that you have a caregiving not problem, you're in a caregiving situation. And that's probably causing some level of anxiety and stress on how and when you can be on a call and not be on a call. But normalizing it to say, that's fine, we have a caregiver BRG, they will help you figure it out. And, they'll just help you figure out how you modify the structure of your work so you can actually deliver. So I think creating that level of openness in an organization is what will help. The NGO part of it, is an interesting way in which you address it as well. So we have, as part of our corporate social responsibility programs, it dovetails into this. So, our partnerships with some of these NGOs create opportunities to see how people with different types, or people from different types of strata, different types of communities, whether they're represented or any such thing, how do they behave, and how do our people interact with them? So I think we create those opportunities. We bring in like people who talk to us, like, we have large scale programs, like, someone who climbed the Mount Everest, didn't have like one leg, they met with an accident and, climbed the Mount Everest. It sort of then minimizes a little bit of your problem, and you'll be like, oh my God, if they can do it, then they have the mental resilience. You learn from that. They are the role models. We do a lot of internal roundtables as well, where we share our experiences. So there is no one answer to anything. It's like a basket. I always think of this as a marketplace of offerings. Right. And then people kind of pick and choose. And then, it's just about what strikes you. It's like when you're listening to a bunch of podcasts or you're looking at reels, like then you kind of go click on something and then you'll be like, oh, that made sense. It resonated with me. I think that's what is the experience we are trying to create for people.
So looking ahead, looking at the future, what could be some emerging trends or let's say HR practices that will help shape the employee experiences and help shape the employee well-being initiatives in general?
I think there are, I'm sure you've heard this, the generative AI is the buzz. It's the thing of the future. We have totally embraced it as a company, right? Because we are anyway a technology transformation company. we work with clients to actually, shift their whole business models, whether it's, setting up a digital bank or whether it is actually figuring out what is a new experience to buy a car. So, generative AI is something that we don't believe is something you have to learn. We believe it's here to stay. It's going to be a part of everybody's life. So if that is the case, and our people are being experienced, they have that experience outside of the company, I think we have to provide it within the company. So, the biggest thing for us would be, how do you integrate generative AI into the work that we do on a regular basis? And what's that experience you create for person? So, when somebody goes somewhere into the portal to say, this is my question, I want to know, what is the expense policy in Switzerland? And, they should not have to go through like 5 different policies to figure out, or 5 different clicks to figure out what is that. They should be able to ask the question and that response should be available. So stuff like that, I think generative AI is going to be a big factor of shift in how you create the experience for a person. I think, we will become all of us in HR will probably become more smarter, at prompt engineering and things like that, and we'll be able to do our work more efficiently. I also think, because we go through reams and reams of stuff to draw insights and conclusions. Now you probably have to just feed the data in and, and you ask the question and then it will throw up the answer, hopefully.
Especially now when the performance management systems, they've now transformed from dashboards to insight boards. You can also see the emotional quotient of a person, the mood of a person.
Exactly.
So Ms. Rao, lastly, based on your personal experience, what could be some of the recommendations or advice that you would give to other CHROs and HR professionals in India who are looking to strengthen these mental health initiatives in their organizations?
Yeah, I will say that it is key. It is a important thing if you think about the multi-generational workforce that we now are all experiencing. We have a young country, people coming in with different expectations. I think it's a really big area of focus if you think about where we need to focus on. And incorporating that into the culture and just who we are as a company is a key thing, so that it doesn't become like, it doesn't become like now what we do, right? We're thinking of talking about mental well-being. That's really not a thing. It's just that, yes, this is how human beings are. This is how we talk to them. So incorporating empathy, emotional understanding, all of that into trainings, getting it into the fiber of the organization, I think is a key thing that HR professionals must think about. And, everything that I spoke about, like create the culture where people feel like they can bring themselves to work, right? Putting that person at the center, I think is, at least I can say from I've been here 22 years and that's sort of the experience that I have.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Kameshwari. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights with us. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.